Alright, it's time for another YouTube video with me, Unrested. And today we're talking about apologies. Apologies. There's been a lot on YouTube recently, hasn't there? We got Shane Dawson apologizing for some past videos that are a bit sketchy. Ooh, it's not looking good, Shane. Don't want to really say where I stand on that one because that is a slippery slope on both sides. And Jenna Marbles, which I think the poor girl just needed a break from YouTube, and this was a good time to peace out. That's my honest opinion. I think she really is sorry. Her apology is sincere, but I think she needed a break. Kind of like Jacksepticeye. He just said, "I'm going to just take a break," and I think I can completely understand this. Taking a break myself, I can totally understand where the drama, the heat, the constant fighting, the constant bickering would push you away from YouTube for a while and make you want to take a break. It was kind of a not so fun situation where I was at with my own YouTube channel at the time. Not that things were going horribly wrong for me, but I just wasn't feeling it, man. And, and Tati Westbrook, she also made an apology. One of the fakest, most insincere plastic people I think I've ever seen in my life, Tati Westbrook. Not really believing anything that lady says. She seems to be, she is Los Angeles, California in the flesh, incarnate. I don't know if that's where she lives, but she really reminds me of that really fake LA attitude. Not saying everybody from LA is bad. Okay, I've met some great LA people. Even here in Japan, I've met them. But there's a lot of fakies out there, and I'm sure those of you from LA would agree. So, apologies in Japan, they are very different when it comes to celebrities. First of all, the gravity of the situation can be very different. For example, something usually very big has to happen in America for a celebrity to come forward and have a press conference and make an apology or a public statement on something. For example, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard with their big blow-up battle between the divorce that's going on there. Not going to take a side right now. I would get off on a huge tangent if I did, but I'm sure you can see that as a clear example. Here in Japan, it doesn't have to be so big to usher in. For example, there was a famous Manzai group, which if you don't know what Manzai is, it is a comedian group with two people in it. Usually one is the tensai, one is the bokeh. That means like the genius and the idiot. One says dumb things while the other one slaps him on the back of the head and says, "No, dummy, it's blah, blah, blah." And they had a huge blow up when they were talking to each other on the radio. And the reason they had this blow up is because they had had so many disagreements in the past. And this just destroyed their career. It wasn't that consequential. Like, they didn't really say like the meanest things ever. They just kind of had a tiff on air like you might hear on the Ron Howard show or Opie and Anthony. Nothing more severe than that. But this just destroyed their career. They had to come forward. They had to apologize for fighting on the air and not keeping the peace, and their career was over. They're slowly making a comeback solo each, and maybe I think once in a while they're seen working together, but they've got a long road ahead of them. And that was like 10 or 20 years ago when that happened. So you can only imagine having to come back from that. Let's get into a couple other celebrity apologies here in Japan and some of the stories that surround those apologies and exactly what went down. For example, the band Tokyo, which it's not spelled like Tokyo, it's spelled Tokio, and I really don't know if I'm supposed to say it any bit different, and I don't really know why they've spelled it that way. Their music is average. I mean, easy listening, soft rock, puts you to sleep if you're looking for any kind of excitement. Sorry, it's not my cup of tea. If you love it, great, go for it. But they had a band member, and he had a bit of a drinking problem at the time. Not too uncommon in Japan, seeing as we can get alcohol around the clock. This does sometimes happen with celebrities. And apparently, one late night when he was drinking at his house, one of his fans, who was 17, asked if she could come over. And he said, "Yeah, sure, let's hang out and stuff." And he was drinking with her. He passed out, and he slept on the couch, and she went home. Nothing happened. There's no rape, no relationship, no touching, nothing intimate. But that's all that happened. His career was finished. He had to make a massive apology. The whole band was crying that they lost the member. His career is over. He could probably never get another gig as long as he lives. And it's all because he made a bad mistake while he was drunk and invited an underage girl over. Is that justified? I'll leave it up to you in the comments. I'm not going to try and comment on that situation. That's all sorts of trouble if I dig myself into that one. Next up, we've got the Becky situation. Now, this was a really sad one. This is one where I felt really bad for Becky. If you don't know Becky, she's, if I believe I've got this combination correct, she's a Hafu, but half Japanese, half British, if I'm correct. And she was very famous throughout Japan, had a massive career that had gone on for decades, and been a host on Morning Musume, been doing TV for ages. And she started to fall for a lead singer of a band that she really liked, and he invited her on a date. They went out to eat together, and then the next day the press was at her house. Why? Turns out that guy was married. Becky did not know this. He had literally just been married only like days or something before, and she had not been invited to the wedding. Maybe she hadn't read about it in the newspaper either. I don't know if it was in the newspaper or if the newspaper got a hold of that information later. But according to her, she did not know. And most of the timelines that match up to this story and the research that was done shows that it is very possible that she did not know he was married at the time. And the media was so angry at her because the man who she had gone on a date with had already gotten his wife pregnant before they got married. Then they got married. Then he took Becky out on a date. So really, I mean, that guy's the creep. I don't see how this is Becky's fault. This guy is the asshole. His career is still going strong. Like, his band's still blowing up. Like, they're huge in Japan. Becky's career is ruined. She had to come out and make an apology for dating a married man. He never had to make any apology at all. Never said anything about it. His wife is still with him. They never had any kind of intimate encounter or anything like that. It was simply eating, and her career is ruined over that. And that is a sad situation and shows just how different apologies are here and how kind of sexist they are, I would say, in general in Japan. Becky was totally played on that one, and it's not fair. Athletes, man, athletes are such a weird situation in Japan. So after an athlete finishes whatever they do in America, and I'm talking about professional athletes, not college athletes, they sometimes go into, being an announcer for whatever sport they were in, or maybe they become a coach, but they kind of fade out of the spotlight for the most part. They're not on TV shows constantly being asked questions about what their life was like or getting commentary on things that have nothing to do with their career. But in Japan, that's not the situation. You could be a one-time gold medalist winner, who I could probably not even name all the gold medalist winners in America, but you could be a one-time gold medalist winner in something like curling or like volleyball. Sports that, while they're hard, I respect them, they just don't get as much popularity. And you will be on a show for the rest of your life here in Japan. You will get gigs asking you about everything from cooking to childcare to how you would handle having your mother or father live in the house with you. They don't care. You're famous in Japan now forever. And the sad thing, though, is this is a very light affair as far as how much credit they'll give you and how much leeway they'll give you if you make any sort of mistake. So, for example, there was a very famous baseball player here, and he had years and years of being Japan's #1 hitter and just blowing up all the different stats for baseball. He retired. He was on shows, he was on commercials, beer commercials, all kinds of stuff for ages, man. And he was found in his apartment with like the most minute, tiny grams of what they called speed. I guess it's methamphetamine. I don't condone using drugs. This isn't like a PSA to say, dude, government, big brother, stop, getting into the way of all of our drug dealings and stuff like that. Everybody should be able to do whatever they want. I'm not such a hippie, but like, if you saw the tiny, minute amount this guy had, it wasn't like he had like a giant meth lab in his apartment. His career is destroyed. His career is utterly destroyed. Like, he will never get another commercial. He is in jail for a super long time. All his contracts are gone. And the scariest thing about Japan, and this just recently also happened with one of the actors who was in the newest Yakuza game, when he was found with a little tiny itty bitty 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 bit of meth in his apartment, he was canceled from the game. They had to delay the release to delete all the CGI of his character and roles from the game. Every movie that was coming out was also canceled or re-edited so he wasn't in it. And any contract he had signed and any management agreement he had signed, he had to pay back with his own money. He had to pay all of it back. So anything that was currently in the works, like let's say they said, okay, we're gonna give you half of the money for this book deal, and then after we interview you and get your biography, we're gonna publish the book, you'll get tons of money from this. He would have to pay that back, the small amount they gave him at the beginning, or the total amount that he would have already gotten for his role in Yakuza. Any movie that it wasn't published because he got some bad press, he has to pay that movie corporation the amount that they spent to make the movie that he was in. Like, they're bankrupt after this kind of stuff happens. They're completely bankrupt after stuff like this happens, and they have a very, very slow climb if they ever want to get back into the spotlight. It happens sometimes, but it is a extremely slow climb. Like, I've seen Becky probably on TV 1 or 2 times, and that's mostly because the guys from SMAP are super nice dudes, and they've given her a chance now and again, trying to work her into shows. And, my hat's off to them for that. I think those are the only guys who really stood up for her and said, look, like, she was totally screwed. Let's see, do I got any other good stories for you? Let's go with the last one here. Okay, this is the one that gets me the most, and that I really, I had to turn to my wife and be like, is this real? Is this person really having to apologize for this? If an actor or celebrity's child does something crazy, so for example, there was an actress, and this actress was like a well-known elderly actress who had acted from a very young age in Japan, back in their golden age of Sakuragawa films and all those old-timey films wearing kimonos and all the yukatas and stuff like that, samurai movies. She worked her way all the way through the business for years and years, was still making movies to the day that her son, who was a grown-ass man now, okay, this guy is I want to say he was 27 when he did this. He went into a park and assaulted a 40-year-old woman and raped her. And now her career is finished. Yes, she had nothing to do with it. Did her son live with her? No, he had his own place. Was she there at the park when this happened? No, she wasn't. She was shooting a movie. Did she tell her son to do it? No. Had she tried to get her son help before because she knew he was, a bit of a sociopath? Yeah, she had. Is she still never going to make another movie and totally out of the business again because of what her son did? Yes. Yes. It's insane, man. Can you imagine? You work on your career so hard, and you do it to put food on the table for your kids and build a wonderful life for them, raise them in the utmost posh atmosphere because you're a well-paid actress who's highly recommended amongst all the greatest directors out there. And what does your kid do? Slap you in the face with a crime and go to jail and ruin your career and take his whole family down with it. I don't know, man. What do you guys think? Do you think that's a kid who's spoiled? Do you think that's a kid who's just such a sociopath there is no correcting it? Do you think the mother failed him somehow? Those kind of stories are insane to me, especially the fact that she has to apologize for it. you know, there's some actors in America who've had some kids who have done some pretty horrible stuff. And usually the first thing those actors do is disavow. They say, I can't stand up for my kid. What they've done is horrible. It's disgusting, and I won't stand by. And they sometimes, once in a while, try to get them a get out of jail free card. But for the most part, most actors are pretty good about distancing themselves. And they're usually not even asked to give an apology because, as we know, it's usually not involving them. It's usually completely relegated to their kid or their offspring who's done something horrible. And we don't blame the son for the sins of the fathers, so we shouldn't blame the father for the sins of the son. It might, right? Anyway, guys, I'd love to hear what you think about those cases in the comments down below. Those are some examples of apologies in Japan, what people apologize for, and how it goes not so well sometimes. Till next time, I'm Unrested. I'll talk to you again real soon.